NOVOCAINE from 2025 unfolds as a tense psychological thriller centered on numbness, emotional, moral, and physical, and explores how people try to erase their pain while slowly destroying the very thing they meant to protect. The film follows Dr. Alex Mercer, a respected dentist living in an upper-middle-class neighborhood where quiet streets and polished smiles hide deeper fractures beneath the surface. Alex is meticulous, controlled, and externally calm, but internally he is unraveling. He lives with persistent anxiety, unresolved guilt from a traumatic event in his past, and a growing sense that his life has slipped into an emotionless routine. His practice is thriving, yet he feels disconnected from his patients, his colleagues, and even himself. This emotional numbness becomes the thematic backbone of the film, setting the stage for a story in which the boundaries between sedation, truth, and delusion begin to collapse. Alex's life shifts when a new patient named Mara walks into his clinic. She is charming, unpredictable, and carries an air of danger disguised as vulnerability. Mara claims she suffers from severe dental pain and requests strong anesthetics, but something about her story seems inconsistent. Her eyes show fear, desperation, and something darker that Alex cannot identify. Against his better judgment, he gives her a prescription that skirts the edge of legality. This decision marks the beginning of a chain of events that consumes his stability. Mara quickly forms an attachment to him, returning frequently with new complaints, emotional confessions, and subtle manipulations. She twists her personal tragedies into reasons why Alex must help her, appealing to his lingering guilt and his desire to feel needed. He recognizes the dangerous dynamic forming, but is also drawn to the intensity she brings into his otherwise muted life. As Alex becomes entangled with Mara, strange events begin happening both inside and outside his clinic. Files go missing, patient records appear altered, and he receives calls in the middle of the night with no voice on the other end. His supply of anesthetics begins to run low despite careful tracking, and he notices signs that someone has entered the office after hours. At home, he feels watched. Shadows move at the edges of his vision. Doors he remembers closing are left open, and small objects are misplaced. The film uses these details to create an atmosphere of creeping paranoia, making it unclear whether Alex is truly being targeted or if his unstable emotional state is causing him to hallucinate threats that do not exist. His grip on reality loosens, and the audience becomes trapped inside his spiraling perspective. Mara's influence tightens as she begins appearing in unexpected places, outside his house, near his car, even inside cafes where he tries to escape his thoughts. She acts as though they share an intimate bond, speaking in cryptic hints about fate and shared pain. Alex tries to cut ties, but she reacts with emotional volatility, threatening to expose their interactions and hinting that she has deeper knowledge of his past trauma than she should. Her presence becomes a psychological trap. She represents both the chaos he fears and the chaotic freedom he secretly craves. Every time he attempts to distance himself, she pulls him back with reminders of the moral lines he has crossed and the numbness he tries to hide behind professionalism. When a DEA investigator begins questioning local clinics about missing anesthetics and suspicious prescriptions, Alex's panic intensifies. Bits of evidence point directly toward him: altered logs, forged signatures, and unexplained withdrawals. The investigator's calm, methodical approach adds pressure, making Alex hyper-aware of every mistake he has ever made. Meanwhile, Mara's behavior grows even more unpredictable. She oscillates between seduction, despair, and cold manipulation, insisting that she and Alex are bound by secrets he cannot escape. Her psychological hold on him reinforces the theme that numbness is not absence but suppression. Pain buried deep enough eventually turns toxic. Alex's attempts to suppress his guilt, his loneliness, and his fear have left him vulnerable to someone who thrives in emotional chaos. The central mystery intensifies when Alex discovers that Mara has a criminal record, a history of identity manipulation, and connections to a local drug ring. But the deeper he digs, the more he realizes that Mara's motivations are not driven by profit or addiction, but by psychological fixation. She believes Alex is the only person who understands her suffering, and she is determined to bind him to her through shared destruction. Her fixation becomes a twisted form of loyalty, and she begins framing him for increasingly serious crimes, stealing medication, falsifying documents, and implicating him in a patient's overdose. Alex must navigate a maze of manipulation, evidence, and half-truths, all while battling his own descent into emotional collapse. As the story reaches its climax, Alex confronts Mara in his clinic late at night after discovering she has broken in again. The confrontation is intense and psychologically charged. Mara claims she is saving him from a life of emptiness, insisting that his numbness is the real villain in his life. Her words cut deeply, mirroring Alex's internal fears. She accuses him of hiding behind sedation, not just in his work but in his emotional choices. Their argument escalates into a physical struggle, during which a vial of powerful anesthetic spills and fills the room with fumes. The sequence becomes disorienting, blurring reality with hallucination, as Alex fights both Mara and his own disintegrating sense of self. In the end, Mara collapses from exposure, and Alex barely escapes unconsciousness. The scene reflects the central metaphor of the film. Numbing pain can easily numb truth. In the aftermath, Alex faces legal scrutiny, emotional devastation, and the collapse of his professional reputation. However, evidence begins to surface proving that Mara acted alone, manipulating his vulnerabilities with precision. He is cleared of most charges, but his clinic is closed, his colleagues distance themselves, and his sense of purpose is shattered. The final scenes show Alex attending therapy and attempting to rebuild his life, acknowledging the emotional wounds he had long refused to confront. The film ends on an ambiguous note. Alex stands outside his former clinic, staring at the darkened windows, unsure whether the numbness he feels now is healing or the beginning of a new kind of emptiness. NOVOCAINE becomes a character study about the danger of suppressing pain, exploring how numbness can attract destruction when left unexamined. It blends psychological tension with emotional tragedy, presenting a story where the true horror lies not in violence or crime, but in the slow erosion of self.